All right, everybody, I'm going to go ahead and get started. We have a few more people that were registered that might pop in. That's okay. My name is Mark Montgomery. I work here at Academic Technology Services. We're going to be here to help you all out with your Zoom needs and D2L needs. I'm here, I work kind of a second shift, so I'm here from 11 a.m. till 7:30 p.m. each night. And then we have other staff that are here, normal hours from 8 to 4:30. Our goal today is just go over some of the basics of Zoom to get you up and running in your classes and to go over the nuts and bolts. We won't do a super deep dive into everything, but we have plenty of resources online that will go over more specific topics. And if you all will hold off on questions until the very end, I'm going to set aside some time once we get through the presentation to answer questions you all may have. But hopefully this will be really intuitive and easy to pick up. And I'll try to go slow and give everybody a chance to get accustomed to Zoom as we're going through this. So the things we want to focus on today are how to create a meeting, how to manage the recordings once your meeting's done, how to host a Zoom meeting, what it's going to look like in D2L for yourself and your students, and then we'll go over questions and how to get access to the resources we have online and how to contact us for anything else you all may have. So one of the most important things, if you only remember one thing from this meeting, it's this link right here, this www.etsu.edu/Zoom. I want to pull it up so everybody can see it. So this page is a one-stop shop for things Zoom. It gives you a brief introduction to what Zoom is. My coworker Patrick has created a great playlist of videos going over specifics of Zoom. We've got PDFs down here of a lot of different options and tools within Zoom. And then up here at the top in the right is a direct link to log into Zoom. So for any of your coworkers that have never touched Zoom before, this is a great place to send them for that first time. And that's that link right there, etsu.edu/Zoom. So everybody at ETSU that has an ETSU email address automatically has a pro account. It doesn't matter if they're a student or staff or faculty, everyone has a pro account. And what that means, as opposed to the free account, there are no limits on the number of meetings they can hold. There's no limits on how long the meeting can last. They can have up to 300 participants in one meeting at a time. I suggest you never have that many participants in a meeting at one time. That can be real overwhelming real quick. For lecture classes that have over 100 students, it is possible to have them all in the meeting at the same time. It also means that we have cloud recordings that are available. They're hosted for only a limited amount of time. Right now, we're extending that up to 365 days. After that 1-year period, those recordings are deleted from the cloud. But up until that 365-day period, you can download those, you can put them on your S drive, have them on your local computer, and they can't be deleted from that unless you personally delete them. But these are great features and they are for you all to use, and we want you all to be able to use these features as much as possible. There are a lot of ways that your students and you can access Zoom. For a lot of your students, they're going to be going through D2L. So this is the way they're probably going to interact with Zoom. Some of you might got an email today once you registered for this meeting, and that's how you got the link to enter into this meeting and maybe register in Zoom for the first time. There's also a desktop app that you can download straight from the zoom.us website. There's mobile apps on both Android and Apple devices. And they have the same functionality. Your students can watch your class, they can interact with you using their cell phone webcam and microphone, all from their phone. But the way that we're going to go today is we're going to focus on the web portal. The web portal offers the most features as far as setting options for your meeting, getting access to your recordings, to attendance reports. It's kind of a one-stop shop for everything you might need in Zoom. So that's what we're going to focus on. If you do use the desktop application, the first time you launch it,
I'm going to take a look at the D12 to Zoom integration, which is something fairly new, and it's not nearly as difficult or as complicated as it may sound, but it is a tool you have. We will have plenty of time for questions at the end, like I said. But since this is interactive, feel free to use your mic, to use the chat feature, to jump in and ask a question if you have one. We can be very informal with this.
I think we could go ahead and mute Jeremy there. I think he's playing an older recording.
gotcha, okay.
Now, say we're going to record this, and I want to draw your attention to this website, etsu.edu.
Okay, sorry about that. I couldn't figure out that's coming from my computer or somewhere else. That's no problem. All right, so in the desktop application, the first time
you guys hear me? I'm hearing about 2 or 3 things at one time here. I'm not hearing one person. There's 2 or 3 people talking at the same time.
Log into Zoom.
Right.
Can anyone hear me?
Jeremy, can you hear my microphone at all?
Mark,
Yeah,
I can hear you fine. Let's go ahead and mute everybody else.
Yep.
So there's somebody talking, giving directions as well, and I can't hear you for that. Is the problem?
Ready to activate for every single faculty and staff member, as well as all.
Do you hear what's going on? There's somebody saying every single faculty, staff member, and all that stuff, so I can't hear anything that you're saying hardly.
Jeremy, you might have another browser tab open that has the video playing.
Okay, well, let me check and see here. You might be right.
What does that exactly mean? It means that there are no limits to how.
All right, I think we got that straightened out. Sorry about that, everyone. So with the desktop application, first time they sign in, they're going to be met with these options. And it's going to be real tempting for everyone to start typing in their ETSU email address on the left side, but that's not going to get people where they want to go. We want people to choose the sign in with SSO option. SSO stands for single sign-on. That is what's going to recognize your ETSU email address and associate it with our ETSU Zoom account. So if you ever see a sign in with SSO option, that's the one you want to choose. For the web portal, if you all have a browser open and type in etsu.zoom.us, then you'll see this lovely picture here of campus. You'll see 2 options there. You'll see join and sign in. Sign in is the option we want to choose. It'll take you to a Microsoft sign-in page. You'll sign in with your full ETSU email address. You'll hit next. Microsoft, we have it set up to where we have 2-step authentication. What that means is that you can't just simply type in your ETSU email address and password. It also needs a way to authenticate that it's really you. And the way that it does that right now is it sends a text message to your cell phone that's associated with your ETSU account. And if you're in a place like we are here in the library that has concrete walls, you probably have a hard time getting a text message in your office maybe. If you have a chance, I recommend going to the App Store or the Google Play Store and looking for the Microsoft Authenticator app. That makes it a lot easier for that two-step authentication, and that will just save you some time whenever you're logging into Zoom. Once you're logged in, you'll see a page much like this. This is your profile page. This is from my coworker, Patrick. He's got a profile picture up here. And that's important because whenever your camera is turned off in a meeting, that is the image that people will see. If you don't have a profile picture, it'll just show your name, which is perfectly acceptable. Either one works, whatever you prefer. Another really important feature to make note of is a personal meeting ID. So you'll see that a little bit further down on the page. This personal meeting ID, our advice is to treat this like a private phone number. This is not something you want to advertise to all your students because anyone who has this personal meeting ID, anytime they want to make a Zoom meeting with you, they could put in that ID and it will automatically, you'll see a notification on your computer show up and someone will be calling in. And that's probably not ideal for most situations. But it's a handy feature for those people that you trust, maybe for a coworker or an executive aide maybe. That might be worthwhile to use that personal meeting ID. Okay. Also on the portal, in the web portal, we can configure all the settings for your meetings. Now, there are a lot of settings here. We're not going to go through all of them today, but it's important to note that if you're looking at the desktop client for a setting, you might not find them all there because it's a little bit more limited, but you'll find all of them in the web portal. There are some settings that are locked that we set as administrators that you cannot change. And it's usually for your benefits. But anything else that you can toggle on and off, you're welcome to change those to your liking. At the top of the web portal, you'll see some links up here. We've got this one highlighting for upcoming meetings. This is great to have on hand so you know what's coming up. These will include anything that you've scheduled in D2L, as well as the client, the web portal. This is a one-stop shop for all the meetings you have coming up under your account. Now, the next session we're going to go over is how to schedule a meeting. So by clicking on this link in the web portal, this will be the first screen that comes up. What you'll see here is this topic, and you can set that to whatever you want to. This is what your participants are going to see in their calendar. They save this in their calendar. It's what they'll see whenever they launch the meeting and whenever they get an email to the meeting. The next field here, the description, you'll notice it is optional. I would not recommend spending a lot of time or putting a lot of detail into this description field, mostly because it's rarely seen. Most users never come across it. It doesn't show up in the email, so it's overlooked a lot. Next, we're going to set the time for the meeting. So we're going to set a date, and then the time is going to start. A duration is important only for how it's going to look in someone's calendar. So if I set this meeting to 2 hours, it'll put a 2-hour block of time in my Outlook calendar. Other than that, it doesn't make a difference. Once we hit that 2-hour mark, it doesn't stop the meeting, it doesn't stop the recording. It's just there to let your participants know, that we are expecting to meet for this amount of time, but it doesn't limit you in any way. There's a checkbox down here for recurring meeting. If this is for a class that meets, Monday, Wednesday, Friday for the next 3 weeks, you're going to want to check this box, and it's going to give you some additional options here to select multiple days throughout the week and how long you want this to repeat. If you want it to last for, the next 7 class periods, so 7 meetings, or you can set it to end at a certain date. So, maybe May 8th, around graduation. The next checkbox down here, registration. We recommend not using this. This is an extra hurdle for students to get into a meeting and doesn't add any value. So for the most part, this is a feature that we don't recommend using with your students. You'll see the Schedule 4 option only if you've been given delegate access to that. The times where this is useful is maybe there's an executive aide in your office that is scheduling meetings on your behalf. And so this is a great tool for them to go ahead and make those meetings for you. But if you do not have delegate access to someone, you won't see this option. Now this meeting ID, this is what I was talking about earlier with the personal meeting ID. It's an option here. You could select that, but we recommend that you do not. It's going to generate an automatic meeting ID for you. That's going to be random for each individual meeting. If it's a recurring meeting, that will stay the same. The meeting ID for each recurring meeting will be consistent. But if I set office hours, if I have a meeting for each of my students to have office hours with me, those will be individual, unique meeting IDs every time. And that's what we recommend sticking with. Once you're done going through those meeting options, you'll see the summary page. And this is going to give you the tools you need to distribute out the meeting requests to other people. So you'll notice there's 3 links here to add this to a calendar. There's one for Outlook, one for a Yahoo calendar, and one for a Google calendar. Down here, a little bit towards the middle, there are a couple of important things to note here. There's a blue link down here that says copy the invitation. And so what that's going to do is it's going to open a new window. In fact, I'm going to bring this up in the browser so you all can see this more clearly. So if I hit copy the invitation right here, this is going to give me everything that my participants need to know about the meeting to get in. So it's going to give them a topic, time it's going to meet. It's going to have a link for them to click to get into the meeting. It's going to give them the meeting ID. It's going to give them a couple of numbers down here. Now these numbers are important. If they have a desktop computer, doesn't have a microphone, this is going to give them an option to call into the meeting with their cell phone or a landline using these numbers. So they'll call in this number, they'll need the meeting ID, and then they'll be able to talk just like they had a microphone using their phone, and then using a webcam from their computer. If they don't have a webcam, they can still at least listen and communicate in the meeting through their phone. The rest of these, it gives them a lot of other information here. If they're other parts of the US, if they're outside the US, there's options for join by SIP, H.323. These are only important if someone was trying to use like another teleconferencing software to bridge into the meeting, which none of your students or coworkers are going to need. So you're welcome, once you copy this, to strip out some of that information. But I could copy all that, then open up an email, paste it all in. I might get rid of, this bottom section. These would be the most important things for my participants to know. And then I could just type in any email from the email address to send that out. Okay. All right. I want to talk to you about some of the meeting controls once you're in the Zoom meeting. I want to show you my screen so that you can see what I see. Okay. So when you first start a meeting, you'll probably be looking at a screen like this, which can look like a lot, but I'm going to go over these tools and break it down a little bit for you. You'll notice that down here at the bottom, I've got a microphone down here. Let's see. Okay, thanks, Jeremy. Yep. Okay, issue resolved. Glad to hear it. So you'll see it's going up and down with a green bar, and that's because I'm speaking at the time. So that lets me know there's audio going out currently. At any time, I can click on this microphone and my audio would be muted. And my video is the same way. If I click on it, y'all would no longer see my feed. You will go back to just my name. Another really important thing to note here are these two little arrows next to the microphone and the camera. If you click on one of these, you'll see an option here to test speaker and microphone. This is really great for you to know, not only for yourself, but also for your students that might be having issues with a speaker not working, their microphone not working. By telling them to go here, it will go through some iterations of playing a tone so they can hear it through their speakers and going through the different speakers on their computer, as well as seeing if their microphone is being picked up, and it will play back whatever it hears from that. There's an option down here to invite. So once you're in a meeting, if you remember that, oh, I really wanted my colleague to jump in on this too, you have the option, click invite. And then you can start typing in anyone's address in here, and they'll be invited to the meeting. They'll get an email like we talked about earlier. You can also just copy that text like we did in the web portal before and send out an email that way. Manage participants right here is really important. So here is where I'll see a list of everyone in my meeting right now. This also shows me who has a microphone, who has a camera. A few people in the meeting right now, they don't have a camera on their machine, and that's totally okay. They didn't have to have one. But I can mute them and unmute them. I have the option here to unmute anyone in the meeting. So if I have someone that I want to speak and I want them to show their video, this is another test machine I added to the meeting. If I click on more down here, I have a few more options. So I can ask to start video. You notice the word ask is going to be there. And the reason is we do not give, as the host of the meeting, we cannot turn on someone's microphone or webcam without their permission. So the most we can do is we can request that they do that, and then they still have the option of whether or not they actually want to. All right. But as the host, what I can do is I can mute. So I can turn off someone's camera, I could turn off someone's microphone, but I cannot turn them back on. Well, I cannot turn them on initially. All right. You'll notice a few more options here: make host and make co-host. So what I am right now in the meeting is a host. That gives me certain privileges, like these tools down here, ending the meeting, starting and stopping the recording, that the participants in my meetings do not have. But if I have a TA or a GA that's in my class, and I want them to help me do some crowd control, unmute and mute some students as I'm asking and getting questions from them, checking on the chat window, it might be a good idea to make them a co-host. It's good to make them a co-host because if you make them host, then you are no longer a host, you're a normal participant. So if I were to make anyone else in the meeting a host, I would no longer have any extra privileges. I would be a normal participant just like everyone else in the meeting. that they're a co-host, then I still have all the rights as a host, and they have most of the rights, except they cannot end the meeting for everyone. Other than that, that's about the only difference between the two. And they, as a co-host, cannot make someone else a co-host or a host. All right. This share screen button is very important. So if you have a PowerPoint you want to give, if you want to show a YouTube video or anything like that, you're going to need this green share screen button. So when I share screen, it gives me lots of options. There's really only one or two that we'd like for you to focus on, as this the one in the top left, screen one. So when I choose screen one, that means anything on this screen, this is the screen that I'm currently sharing right now. Everything on there, everyone else in the meeting can see. Now that includes my email that I have up. Sorry, there's an announcement coming over from the library.
Your attention, please. The building is closing in 30 minutes. Circulation desk services close in 15 minutes. If you wish to check out library materials, please come to the circulation desk at this time. The building will close in 30 minutes.
Okay, that's important to take note of. There's a lot of things we can't control when we're in the meeting. And things like announcement coming over or the lights going off at the end of the day, that's bound to happen. Likewise, when you're sharing your screen, you're bound to get an email from a coworker or a text notification come up on your screen if you have those on your desktop. So when I share the screen, it's going to show anything that I have up on this window. There are options to select an individual program like my PowerPoint presentation, but we have found that when instructors choose just one application like that, oftentimes they decide, oh, I want to show them this YouTube clip, and then they go to YouTube and no one in the meeting can see it. And it's just a lot easier if you choose to do the whole screen when you're sharing. Another thing to take note of, these two check boxes at the bottom. One says share computer sound, the other one says optimize screen sharing for video clips. We recommend every time that you share your screen to check both of these. Even if you're not planning to share a YouTube video, it's just a good idea. If you do end up sharing a YouTube video or playing anything with audio, it's going to send out not only the video that's being played, but the audio in pretty good synchronization. It's not perfect, but it's pretty good, and it's doing a lot by playing a video, streaming it to everyone, and sending out that audio. It's pretty impressive. So we always recommend that. And then last step is to click this blue share button at the bottom. Once you do that, they'll see your screen just like you all are seeing my screen. And so let's see. Yep. All right. The recording buttons down here are vital as well. So you'll notice I have two here. One says pause, and this one has a big stop button on it. So the difference here is if I pause the recording, that's just going to put a gap, or actually it's going to prevent a gap being in the recording. So if we're taking a break for 5 minutes in the class, I don't want whoever's watching this video later to just have to sit there for 5 minutes. So I might pause it. However, if I had pressed stop, what that does, whenever I hit stop, that tells Zoom, okay, I'm done lecturing. I want you to go ahead and start processing this video so I can share it with my students. And so what it does is it's going to go ahead and start the work of processing it and getting it ready to distribute. And then if I realize, oh, I'm not done with my lecture, I need to record some more, and I start a recording again, when I go in to look at my recordings for that class, I'm going to get 2 video files. So rather than just giving my students, here's the link to the class, I'm going to send them 2 links now, one to the first half and one to the second half. So we recommend, when possible, just hit pause for the most part. Stopping is just at the very end, but when you end the meeting, that also stops the recording. The chat feature down here is also real important. So let's see, I'm gonna go. Now notice Jeremy sent me this privately, but because I'm the host, this is part of the recording now. So that's important to note and remind your students of. If they choose to chat with you, make sure they know that whatever they send you in the chat window privately even is still part of the recording. And down here at the bottom, there's options for who I want to chat with. So if I say everyone in the meeting, and I send something out, everyone in the meeting is going to get the same message. And their responses will be sent back to me and everyone else at the meeting. But you have the option to choose anyone specifically. And this private chat that I send them, everyone in the meeting will still see this because we're recording. But other than that, if two of my students are chatting amongst each other privately, I as a teacher will not know what they're chatting about. All right, I'm going to remove that chat window and manage participants. Now, once you're sharing your screen, a lot of these tools at the bottom are going to start showing up in the top. Let's see, so once you're sharing, you'll see controls like this at the very top, and they'll kind of fade up into the top of the screen there whenever you're not using them. But to get them back, you just hover your mouse up to the top. And you'll see there's only a few up here right now. And the reason that is because I've enabled a special setting that allows everyone to see my Zoom controls. And so it's a little bit different than what you'll see when you're sharing your screen. When you're sharing your screen, you shouldn't see any of these at the bottom. All of these tools in the bottom should now be in the top. And they can't fit everything up here real easily. So there's a more button with these ellipses. So by clicking on more, you'll see a lot of things that are normally in the bottom of your Zoom meeting. If you're at a point where you're done going through a PowerPoint and you want to just lecture for a while, you can hit the stop share button. We'll go back to this larger format where your students can see your video and their classmates' videos. All right. Let's see. Okay, we've already gone through a lot of these right in Zoom, so I'm going to go past those slides. Okay. Here are some important tips and best practices. Before your meeting, it is a great idea to test your audio and video to launch either a practice Zoom meeting. There's even a website we want to get to later. It's down here. It's etsu.zoom.us/tests or zoom.us/tests. By going to either one, let's see, I'm going to bring it up here. So etsu.zoom.us/test. So what this is going to do is going to bring up this page. They'll just have a simple join link. It's going to launch a Zoom meeting. No one else is going to be in the meeting. It's not going to be recorded. It's just a way for you to get an idea for if your camera's working, if your microphone's working, if your speakers are working. We also recommend that you share this link with your students so they don't accidentally launch the class meeting that might be recorded when they're trying to test. Before your class, it's a great idea to have your content that you intend to share already launched. You have your PowerPoint up, that you turn off notifications, that you go ahead and get everything you're going to need launched, because it can be distracting for students if you're looking through your S drive trying to find that PowerPoint file or download it from D2L last minute. So if you get the chance, please go ahead and download your content beforehand. Like I said earlier, close those applications with pop-ups like your email. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. When you're hosting a meeting, if other people are presenting, it's a great idea to just go ahead and mute your microphone, even if you're not worried about accidentally saying something, you're going to have urge to cough. There's going to be maybe a child walking in, that's, needs your attention, or you're going to be writing notes or typing out notes, and that could be real distracting for someone who's presenting, hearing the click and clack of your keyboard or the rustling of papers. So it's best just go ahead and mute if you're not the one presenting and speaking. Whenever you are in a collaborative space, in a discussion space, it's good to use that gallery view. And so in the top right corner, you'll see an option here. Right now we're in speaker view, and so that gives the person speaking the focus and the largest real estate on the screen. But this gallery view, we'll switch it to where we can see majority of people. It's a lot right now. This can get up to 49 individual tiny squares. And then after 49, it starts paging. So you can go to page 2 of 49, page 3 onward up to 300. Again, it's a lot of people, and don't recommend having that many people in a meeting, but it can happen. Okay. The annotation feature is a great option when you're in the middle of a meeting and you want to point out something. So up in the Zoom controls here, if you're sharing your screen, you'll see them up in the top toolbar. If I click on annotate, I'll have the option to draw on the screen, which is real handy if I'm trying to point out something. One issue with this is if I go back to my PowerPoint, that drawing is still there in the same spots. I can clear it real easily with this trash can, clear all drawings, clear my drawings. There's a setting to where you can let participants to also draw, which can be real distracting real quick. So it's a good idea to turn that off. But there's also annotation tools within PowerPoints and Microsoft products. So if I want to, highlight a note here, I do that at PowerPoint, and then when I go to the next slide, that drawing is only on the slide that I drew it on. So those annotation tools are also available to you within PowerPoint and other Microsoft Office tools. But if you're in a program that doesn't have annotation tools, you can use these in Zoom, and they are very handy, but they will remain on the screen no matter if you minimize or switch to another program. So just don't forget how to use either the eraser to erase them or this trash can to clear them all. Okay. So the position of your webcam is important. You don't want your students just looking, below your chin level the whole time. So it's a good idea to look at your own webcam feed before you start, and make sure you've got it just a little bit, maybe above eye level with them, and for you to know the view that your students are seeing. If your webcam is over on another monitor, maybe it's on the side, and so you spend the whole time not looking at your students, it's not ideal. So if you can position a point to where it's going to be near where your eyes are going to be, at a PowerPoint, at an outline, something like that, that could be really helpful. Okay, let's talk a little bit about D2L integration. So in the past, we've only turned on the Zoom features in D2L for online classes, but because of the current situation, we have opened this up to everyone on D2L. Every D2L class should have in the top navigation the Zoom link. And so you can see that and your students can see that. It's important to note that the meetings that you schedule here in the Zoom link in D2L, you'll be able to see all those and your students will be able to see all those. That also goes for any meetings that are recorded. Your students will see all of them. TAs, students, anyone that has access to that course, they'll have access to all those recordings. If you schedule a meeting in the web portal, those will not automatically go to D2L. Those will be separate. So if you're scheduling office hours, meeting with the student individually, doing a thesis defense, we recommend don't do that in D2L because you want to be able to control who has access to that recording and joining that meeting. So for those, use the web portal, send out the invitations to just the people you want in there. But for your class, to make it easier on your students, please use the D2L integration. Let's see, let me pull up what it will look like. Okay, so I want to go to a training class that I have set up down here. So if I'm scheduling a meeting, very similar setup, just like the web portal. It's going to automatically put in the name of your class, which is probably fine for most situations. If this is a recurring meeting, I don't want to put in the specific topic we're going in today because every recurring meeting is going to have that same topic. So I'm just going to quickly set this to.
Your attention, please. The building is closing in 15 minutes.
All right, so now that I've got a recurring meeting set up, everyone in my D2L class can see these meetings. As the host, I see these options to start and delete. For my students, they'll see the option to join. Now they can join that class at any point, unfortunately. You can change these settings. I'm gonna add this meeting. So one thing that might be good to do is maybe take off this enable join before host. So that means that until you as the instructor start the meeting, the student will not be able to get in there, and especially if we have this record meeting automatically in the cloud option selected, if someone, decided they want to test out the Zoom settings, so they go to the class D2L, join the meeting, then their webcam could probably going to be on. They're going to be recorded, maybe when they weren't ready to, and then that recording is going to be saved whenever they, abruptly try to get out. It's going to be saved to the detail that the entire class can see. So we recommend having only one of these options on, either enable join before host or record the meeting automatically. If you want to let them be able to join before you start the meeting, you have the option in Zoom to start the recording, whenever you're ready. But if you're like me, I will forget to hit that record button. So I recommend going ahead and record the meeting automatically and just taking off that enable join before host. You also see the option up here, you can have the participant's webcam be turned off initially. And so that might also prevent them from, accidentally, being on camera when they joined the meeting when they weren't ready. And so that's a good idea to have this participant video off. The host is you, and so when you're launching the meeting, I'm assuming you're ready, and so it's probably a good idea to leave that on. This mute participants upon entry, that's for their audio to be muted when they join the meeting. And if it's a lecture-based class, maybe it's a good idea to go ahead and mute them upon entry, just so you don't have to worry about going in and muting them later, potentially, although they can always unmute themselves, and then you as a host can mute them. This waiting room, we don't recommend using. It's another hurdle for students to get into the course. And so we find that it's not that useful in most classroom situations. So this setup right here is pretty ideal for most classes with these two checkboxes checked. Alternative hosts, if you have a TA that might be starting the meeting for you in D2L, it's not a bad idea to go ahead and give them access by putting in their ETSU email address here. And then that will give them co-host privileges whenever they're in the meeting, so they can help you mute, unmute people as needed. All right, I'm gonna save this. Save it. And now after I'm done with the meeting, I'm going to have the option to, after I end it for everyone, Zoom is going to go ahead and start processing the recording. Those recordings, if they're a meeting in D2L, they'll live here under this Cloud Recordings tab. And so your students will have access to see the recordings as soon as they're done. But you have the option to come in here and delete, an erroneous recording that was recorded accidentally, maybe before a class started. But anything that you can see in here, your students can see in here also. So be aware of that. All right. Okay, we're almost done. Like I said, these are some important links to remember. This first one is how a student, a faculty member, a staff member is going to initialize their account if they've never used Zoom before. They're going to need to come to this etsu.zoom.us website to sign in for the first time and to get their pro account initialized. These two links are really important, not only for students, but for you to know that we've got resources here at etsu.edu/Zoom with videos, with PDFs, with guides. Also, the ATS webpage is where you're going to find our contact information, myself and everyone else that works in my office with me. We've got a lot of people here who are Zoom gurus, and we're going to be as available as possible to you all during this time. These test links I mentioned earlier, remember those. It's great if you're sending out a link to your students to include one of these test links. It doesn't matter which one, it's going to take them to the same place. The ETSU one just has our branding on it. Yeah, if you're going to make a news item for your DTL class, these are great to include in there. And if a student's not sure, where do I get Zoom? This is where you can send them to download the clients. Okay, I think I've talked your all's ears off long enough. I'm going to open up your all's mics and allow for questions here. Give me just a second.
Okay.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions?
Mark, I have a question. Can you hear me, Mark?
Yep, I can hear you.
If the students don't download Zoom, will they still have access to this through the D2L site?
They will still have the Zoom link. Yes, they can still join the meeting. When they join the meeting, it'll prompt them to download that first time. It's a good idea just so they don't have to take that extra step, 5 minutes before class.
Right.
You have to go ahead and send them that link beforehand, but yes.
Okay, thanks.
For any professors, whenever you try to go to that Zoom link, if you had not, because everyone's in this meeting, I know you have, but if any of your colleagues ever see an error message that their ETSU email address is not set up for Zoom, that's because they haven't gone to the Zoom, etsu.zoom.us for the first time to initialize their account. And you can just remind them that if they go to that link and sign in the first time, then their D2L Zoom integration will function properly.
Hi, Mark.
Hey.
We're going to be using this for IRB board meetings. Is there any type of voting feature that all the members could do a vote?
So there is a poll feature here.
I'm going to Debbie, OEE, the two phones that Hungarian students were using. And they have it where I don't know where you put it. Yeah, I'm in the chair. Okay, I see him. Yeah.
Okay, and then if I click launch polling here.
Yeah, you got a scarf, you got some Clorox wipes.
I'm guessing y'all are seeing this and have the option to.
I see the phone. I
Okay.
see two.
So I could either have the questions ready in advance, or I could do them on the fly.
Yep.
Okay. All right. And I found a key line on the floor. Is that a key to the apartment?
I can't tell who's talking. And is there a way to find out who responded what way?
Not through this tool that I see. Let's see. Let me make sure. Okay, no, this does not track who specifically voted which way. We do have, there's other tools like Poll Everywhere that can be utilized like this. And if you want to meet later on, Linda, or shoot me an email, I can send you some resources on using something like Poll Everywhere to do a little more in depth with some better reporting features.
That's great. Thank you.
Sure. Linda, you brought up another topic that I wanted to talk about. If you're doing like maybe a thesis defense or an interview potentially for a position, you may be in a situation where, you know, a client has gone through their pitch and you want to discuss with your colleagues what you just heard, but you don't want the person you're interviewing or the thesis participant to hear what you're discussing about them. So there's an option to put someone on hold. I'm going to do this with this test user I have. So if I put them on hold, they will not be able to hear or see what we're talking about while they're on hold. Let's see, I can. So on their screen, they just see this backwards mirrored, but they just see this white screen and it says, please wait, the meeting host will let you in soon. And then, you know, once we're done discussing them, you know, talking about how great they did, how terrible they did, I'll have the option here to take off hold. And then they'll be back in the meeting and hear and see everything just like before. That's better than trying to just mute them or anything like that. That assures that they're not aware of what's going on. But the things
Now, what
that
if I want to do the opposite?
Sorry, go ahead.
What if I want to do the opposite and make somebody the focus of the meeting? Like I want somebody else's screen to show to everybody else or something like that.
As the host, one thing to note, so I can control the layout of this for myself, and you all can also control the layout of how this looks for you on your screen. But for the recording purposes, the recording is going to go based on what I have set as a host. So yeah, if I want to make this one right here, if I want to make it the primary spot, then let's see, I can't, well, I should start. Start the video. So I have two options here. Pin video, it's going to set it to where that gets a primary spot. And that changes it for me. If I spotlight the video, that's going to set it for everyone, hopefully. So on everyone's screen, that feed should be in the primary spot now, no matter who's speaking. And I can cancel.
Like I might contact you tomorrow or the next day to figure out that, oh, okay, so now my screen's showing. That's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Now, are both our voices going on the recording?
They are, yes.
And how did you do that?
So there's different views here. Right now, we're in speaker view, and speaker view should alternate based on whose microphone is picking up the most audio. This gallery view is going to just show everybody equally. The speaker view should toggle between whoever's speaking at the time.
Okay, that's good.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Sure.
Mark, I had a question about I noticed one thing about the whiteboard.
Mm-hmm.
In a situation where we're in a problem solving type class and we want to write out formulas or something like that to explain in detail.
Right.
Do you have any guidance on that? Or should that be done kind of offline, if you will?
So the whiteboard is a handy feature, and what we're talking about here is under your share screen, there's an option for whiteboard. This whiteboard is just going to give me a canvas to where I can use my annotation tools, to write out, an equation or whatever you want it to be. But right now I'm using my mouse, which, is not necessarily pretty by any means. But you can save these, and those are going to show up with your cloud recordings. You can upload them to D2L. So it's a handy feature, especially if you're used to using the document camera in the room. Another option that you could do if you prefer using paper and pencil, you could always just pick up your webcam and point it down to where you have some piece of paper, and you can write out an equation or documents if that's going to be what's best for your students. They have what are called Wacom tablets, and these are USB devices that you can plug into your machine, and it's like an iPad, except for it's just a surface for you to take a pen and write like you would here. So that would make annotations like this a lot prettier. But yeah, the whiteboard is a handy tool, and it's saved with the recordings. So it's a nice way to have everything in one place for your students whenever they're ready to review a lecture.
Thanks.
Sure. One thing to also note is that Zoom does a great job with audio transcription. And so that is fantastic for our students that need disability services to have a written out version of the meeting. Also, it's super helpful if there's a 3-hour lecture and I can't remember what it was or when my professor talked about the War of 1812. I just know he talked about it somewhere in the middle. I can actually go in and search. Let's see if I can pull up.
And we will be.
Okay, I'm going to turn off the audio for this, but so you'll see here, I can search through this transcript for, I'm trying to remember, I remember he said green at some point, so I'm gonna search for green, and it shows me down here, that he mentions green down here. And so if I click on it, it's gonna start at that point in the presentation. Also, if you're going through this and you're like, that's not exactly what I said, you'll see this little pencil icon. This allows you to go in and take this audio transcript that Zoom claims should be 80% accurate. Depending on your accent and the quality of your microphone, that varies. But you can go in here and make this up to 100% accurate by going in and just editing the text here to match whatever it's supposed to say. And then whenever you're looking at these recordings, these are ones that were not made in D2L, so they live in the Zoom web portal under recordings here. You'll see a separate file for audio transcript. This is a VTT file, and it's a text file. If you tell it to open a notepad or Word, it'll open up, and it does a pretty good job of identifying different speakers and segmenting those out. And then you can upload those to YouTube if you have some of your lectures hosted on there for transcription. Another important feature is the reports down here. So under this usage reports, let's see. When was the meeting? Monday, March 16th. Okay. Well, I'm sorry, I was hoping I could find a meeting for y'all, but you'll see a list of the meetings that you have on whatever day you're looking at reports for, and it will tell you who was in the meeting, how long they were in the meeting. If a student just popped in at the beginning of class and then got out, here we go. I can see in here who was in here, how long they were in here, the duration here. And so if I'm using this for attendance, this is a great way for me to check out, okay, who stayed the whole time. You know, maybe they had a bad internet connection and so they got kicked out of the meeting accidentally because their Wi-Fi dropped out. And so maybe they, you know, lost a few minutes here, but they came back in. So I can see that. There's an option here to show unique users. So if someone comes in at one point and they leave and they come out, then they're going to show up a second time in here. So by hitting unique users, it's going to show everybody just once and their combined amount of minutes. You can export this to a CSV file for your records, but you can pull up these usage reports for attendance, which is pretty handy for a lot of teachers. All right, I think that's all for today. But like I said, we're going to be here for you all as much as possible. You can email us at ats@etsu.edu or d2lhelp@etsu.edu. We've got our individual office email addresses and phone numbers on the etsu.edu/ats webpage. Yeah, and feel free to reach out to us. We're going to post more videos of Zoom in the coming days to do some deep dives into some of these individual features, as well as we'll have recordings of these trainings as well that you all can review at your leisure. Thank you all for joining me, and yeah, I'm glad you all are using Zoom, and I hope this is really useful to you and your students.
Thanks, Mark.
You're welcome. All right, y'all have a great day. I'm going to end the meeting. Whenever you're done with your classes, this is how you'll do it too. You'll hit the red end meeting button. It'll give you these options. End meeting for all is what you want to choose. If you leave meeting, then the rest of your class is still going to be there and they can keep on talking, and that will all be recorded, and it's not ideal usually. So end meeting for all is what we want to choose.